The email popped up at 9:12 a.m., just as I was wrapping my hands around my favorite coffee mug. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my downtown apartment, catching the gold edge of my silk blouse. I had a big client call in 20 minutes, but the subject line froze me in place. Notice of delinquency, $568,000 outstanding balance. At first, I laughed under my breath, a sharp, bitter sound. Spam, obviously. But when I clicked it open, my heart stumbled. My name, my social security number, my supposed mortgage on a house I had never seen. I sank into my chair, the leather cold against my bare arms, scrolling faster, trying to make sense of the numbers. $568,000. Payment overdue. Risk of foreclosure. My phone buzzed. A number from the bank. I swallowed hard and answered, forcing my voice steady. "This is Emily Parker." "Miss Parker," the woman on the other end said, polite but clipped, "we need to discuss your delinquent mortgage account." I pressed my palm to my temple. There must be a mistake. I don't even own a house. A pause. Papers shuffled. "According to our records, you do," she said carefully. "And you signed for it 18 months ago." My stomach turned to stone. 18 months ago. That was around the time my sister, Hannah, had called me, crying, begging for help. I hadn't heard from her since. The last time I saw Hannah, she was standing in my driveway, mascara streaked down her cheeks, shouting that I'd turned into mom. I can still feel the lump in my throat that day, the one that made it hard to breathe, let alone argue back. She had been asking me for money, not a little, but everything I'd saved. A short-term loan, she called it, so she and her boyfriend could start fresh. "Emily, you have a good job. You can help me. Please," she'd said, clutching my arm. But I'd already learned my lesson the year before, when I covered one of her credit card bills and watched her max it out again a week later. "No, Hannah. I can't keep rescuing you," I said, my voice shaking even though I tried to sound calm. "You have to figure this out yourself." Her face twisted in rage. "You think you're better than me because you sit in some office all day? You're just like Mom, always judging me." That cut deeper than I expected. Our mother had been sharp-tongued, quick to remind us of our failures, and I'd spent most of my 20s swearing I'd never be like her. I remember standing there, my hands trembling so hard I dug my nails into my palms. "I'm not judging you," I said quietly. "But I'm not sacrificing my future because you refuse to face yours." She didn't reply. She just yanked her arm away, stomped to her car, and peeled out of my driveway, leaving the smell of burnt rubber in the air. That night, I sat on my couch with my knees pulled up, staring at the glow of my phone screen. My grandmother's text popped into my mind, one she sent me the day I left for college. "Emily, your name is your most valuable thing. Guard it. Don't let anyone drag it through the mud, not even family." I had never taken those words so seriously until that day. The next morning, I made a decision. I blocked Hannah's number. I stopped answering calls from unknown area codes. And for the first time in my life, I let myself be selfish. I moved across the state 3 months later, into a one-bedroom apartment with paper-thin walls and a leaky faucet, determined to build a life that no one could take from me. I promised myself I would never let anyone, not Hannah, not my parents, not anyone, put me back in that driveway, begging for scraps of my own peace. Those first months on my own were brutal. I worked 2 jobs, my full-time admin assistant role at a small marketing firm during the day, and waitressing 3 nights a week at a diner, where the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead and the smell of fryer oil clung to my hair. Most nights, I fell asleep with my laptop on my chest, watching free online business courses, teaching myself budgeting and finance because I never wanted to feel powerless with money again. I lived frugally, down to the last penny. Instant ramen, thrift store clothes, and a little jar I kept on my counter labeled Future Emily. Every time I wanted to splurge on something, I dropped the cash in the jar instead. It wasn't glamorous, but slowly things shifted. At the firm, my boss, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Denise, started noticing me. She saw how I stayed late, how I organized everything, how I picked up projects no one else wanted. One night, as I was refilling the printer paper, she stopped by my desk and said, "You know, Emily, you have the brain of a strategist. You ever think about going into marketing strategy instead of just admin?" The words lit something in me. No one had ever called me a strategist before. With her encouragement, I took night classes, learned everything I could, and applied for an internal promotion. When I got it, I cried in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. From there, it snowballed. I went from junior strategist to senior strategist in 2 years, then took the leap to start my own boutique agency. At first, it was just me in my tiny apartment, pitching clients over Zoom with a bookshelf as my backdrop. But then came my first big client, a local restaurant chain that trusted me with their rebranding. Their sales skyrocketed, word spread, and soon I had more work than I could handle. I hired my first employee, then a second. Eventually, I moved into a small but chic office with exposed brick and a view of the river. Through it all, I kept my success quiet. I posted vague updates online, busy month, or excited about new projects. But I never shared details. It wasn't about hiding out of shame. It was about protecting what I had built. Every time I signed a new client, every time I deposited another check into my growing savings account, I thought of that night in my driveway, of Hannah's angry face, of my grandmother's advice. My name was mine. My life was mine. By the time I turned 32, I had a thriving business, a small team, and enough money to breathe easily for the first time in my adult life. And that's when the email about the $568,000 mortgage arrived, threatening to drag me right back into the chaos I had escaped. 2 days later, I stood outside my parents' house, the same faded blue ranch where Hannah and I grew up. The September air was cool, sharp with the smell of cut grass. My heart thudded in my chest as I adjusted the cuff of my blazer and took a deep breath. I hadn't been back in years. When the door opened, Hannah was the last person I expected to see standing there, hair unwashed, oversized hoodie hanging off her shoulders, eyes widening the second she saw me. "Emily," she said, like I was a ghost. I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. The house smelled like old carpet and yesterday's coffee. I set the folder on the kitchen table and slid the papers out one by one, the mortgage documents, the payment schedule, the copies of my forged signature. Her face went pale. "You really thought I wouldn't find out?" My voice was calm, too calm, like if I let any emotion leak through, I'd explode. She swallowed hard. "I didn't have a choice. You weren't answering my calls. I was desperate." I stared at her, taking in the girl who used to share my bedroom, whisper secrets under the blanket with me, braid my hair before school. "You used my name, Hannah. My credit. My future. Without even asking." Tears welled in her eyes. "I thought I could fix it before you ever found out. I just needed time." Time? I laughed once, sharp and humorless. Do you know what it felt like getting that call from the bank? Sitting in my office thinking my whole life was about to collapse. She didn't answer. I turned, gesturing for her to follow me.
"Come on."
"You're going to see something." Confusion flickered across her face, but she followed me outside. 20 minutes later, we were standing in my office, my pride and joy. The polished oak floors gleamed, the modern art on the walls glowed under soft lights, and the big window framed the skyline like a painting. Hannah stood frozen, taking it all in. "This is where I work," I said quietly. "This is what I built. Every sleepless night, every weekend I didn't go out, every sacrifice, it led here." She turned toward me, her face a mix of awe and shame. "I didn't know," she whispered. "Of course you didn't," I said, letting my voice harden just slightly. "Because you never asked. You just assumed I'd still be the sister who bailed you out every time." Her tears spilled over now. I was scared, Em. I didn't know what else to do. For a moment, I just looked at her, really looked. I saw the desperation, the exhaustion. She wasn't just reckless. She was drowning. But so was I once. "You don't get to steal my name," I said finally. "Not anymore. If you want to fix this, you're going to do it the right way. My way." She nodded slowly, wiping her face with the sleeve of her hoodie. "I'll do anything," she said. I believed her, or maybe I just wanted to. Either way, the power had shifted. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one standing in the driveway begging for scraps. This time I was the one holding the pen. I let the silence hang for a long moment, letting her take in the weight of what I was about to say. "You're going to call the bank tomorrow," I said finally, my tone measured but firm. "You're going to tell them the truth, that you forged my signature." Her head snapped up. "Emily, they'll press charges." "Yes," I said, holding her gaze. "They might. But this isn't going away by pretending it didn't happen. I'll be there on the call with you, but we're facing this head-on." She sank into one of the leather chairs across from my desk, looking small, her hands clasped so tight her knuckles turned white. "What if they put me in jail?" "You should have thought of that 18 months ago," I said softly. Then I exhaled, letting some of my anger go. "But I'm not here to ruin your life, Hannah. I'm here to make sure you take responsibility for it." Her tears started again, quieter this time. "You're also going to get a job," I continued. "A real one. No more quick schemes, no more boyfriends who promise you the world and then disappear with your rent money. You're going to pay back every cent of what's owed, not to me, to the bank." She opened her mouth to protest, but I raised a hand. "I'll help you set up a budget. I'll even find you a financial counselor. But this time, you earn your way out." For a second, she just sat there, stunned. Then she nodded, slow but sure. "And one more thing," I added. She looked up warily. "You're going to get therapy. This pattern, the lying, the running, the taking, it ends now. Not just because I say so, but because I refuse to watch you burn down everything around you and drag me with it." Her shoulders slumped, but there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before, relief. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll do it. All of it." I nodded, leaning back in my chair. "Good. Because I meant what I said earlier, you don't get to steal my name. But maybe if you do the work, you can rebuild your own." We spent the next hour making a plan. I wrote down phone numbers for the counselor, the financial advisor I trusted, even a few job leads from clients who owed me favors. When she finally stood to leave, she looked around my office one more time, then back at me. "You're different," she said. I smiled, a little sadly. "No, Hannah. I'm exactly who I was always meant to be. I just stopped letting other people decide that for me." She hugged me, tentative, awkward, and for the first time in years, I let myself hug her back. The next morning, Hannah showed up right on time. Her hair was brushed, her hoodie replaced by a clean shirt and jeans. She looked nervous but determined. I made coffee while she sat at my kitchen counter, wringing her hands. When the bank representative answered the phone, I stayed beside her, steadying her when her voice cracked as she confessed what she'd done. It wasn't easy to listen to, the shame in her tone, the way she had to repeat, "Yes, I forged my sister's signature." But when the call ended, I felt something inside me loosen. It was the first step, and she had taken it. Over the next few weeks, she surprised me. She followed through on every part of the plan, met with a financial counselor, applied for jobs, even went to therapy. She still had a long way to go. The debt wouldn't vanish overnight. Trust wouldn't either. But every time she sent me a screenshot of another job application submitted or told me about a hard conversation she'd had with her therapist, I felt a little more of the anger in me dissolve. One night, I found myself holding the little charm bracelet my grandmother had given me before college. It was tarnished now, the clasp a little bent, but the tiny engraved tag still read, "Your name is your most valuable thing." I smiled. She had been right all along. Protecting my name hadn't just been about credit scores or legal documents. It was about protecting the woman I had fought so hard to become. And somehow, standing here now, I realized I wasn't just protecting myself anymore. I was helping Hannah protect herself, too. A month later, she landed a receptionist job at a local dental office. When she called to tell me, she sounded lighter than I'd heard her in years. "I think I'm going to be okay," she said quietly. I looked out the window of my office, the city lights twinkling like tiny stars, and let out a slow breath. "Yeah," I said, smiling. "Me too." For the first time in a long time, I felt completely at peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had chosen to face it head-on. This time, my name belonged to me, and I was never giving it away again.